Hi, this is my presentation on rebuilding the promise and hope in education. So when asked the question, what are the promise and hope of education in American public schools? I have to think about these questions. What is the purpose of education? How are we viewing our students? What are the inequalities within our schools? What do teachers think about their students? And what do we need to change or practice on? So what's the purpose of education? One can say that it teaches academic and social emotional learning, create lifelong learners who can teach others, to build learning communities that value equality and individuality. I believe that education's purpose is to provide an equal learning environment where all students can flourish and reach their highest potential. Where learning is student-centered and extend beyond what we can envision students to achieve in the classroom. Let's think about students. Who are they? Our students are categorized in their nationality, race, ethnicity, socioeconomic class, age, sex, gender, mental ability, emotional ability, physical ability, religion, and so many others. These categories not only shape students as a person, but influence their experiences at school, either positive or negative. As a matter of fact, Black students are 3 times more likely to be suspended or expelled than their white peers. When looking at the LGBT community, 75% of trans students feel unsafe at school. Now, let's look at the inequalities within our school. If you look at this picture here, you notice that students with more resources are more likely to go to college and achieve successes, while others are left with more duties and more circumstances. When comparing low and high SES students, low AS students are more likely to be in debt due to loans. They tend to struggle in school because of unrecognized disabilities. They are encouraged to work during schools. For high AS students, they have better access to top colleges because of parent donation, more likely to be accommodated through learning disabilities, and are encouraged to learn and complete school. If you look at the achievement gap from before and now, it has relatively remained the same. For students born in 1954, the achievement gap between the average of those in the top and bottom 10% of the socio-economic distribution was slightly less than 1.2 standard deviation. For those born in 2001, the gap was only slightly narrowed to about 1 in 500 standard deviation. Now let's examine what do teachers think about their students. And this talks about racial bias, gender bias, and social class bias. When thinking about biases, we need to understand that teachers' perceptions and expectations of students directly translate to whether students believe in their own ability to achieve academically and make progress in schools. Therefore, teacher bias can really affect student achievement at schools, and if we fail to recognize how bias affects our practices, it can make other existing bias worse. So when thinking about the issues and questions that we have, what are the solutions for these issues, and what do we need to work on? Well, first, education should be student-centered and target everyone equally. Second, educate teachers on students' categories and how it affects students every day. Third, educate teachers on the achievement gap and create an equal learning environment not based on money. Fourth, have teachers evaluate their biases on students and educate them on best practices. And fifth, push Congress for education reform and develop more research on these matters. So, for the hope and promise of education to happen, we need to evaluate these questions that were discussed in the presentation. From there, it's the matter of educating the teachers on best practices and putting emphasis on an equal education for all students. This ends my presentation, and thank you for viewing it.